That's what I'm talking about!
Welcome to the Filmcast review of Gran Turismo. I'm going to read the plot summary from the internet. This is the true story of a team of unlikely underdogs, a working-class gamer, a former race car driver, and an idealistic motorsport executive who risk it all to take on the most elite sport in the world, end quote. I'm David Chen here with Devindra Hardwar and Jeff Kanata. Devindra Hardwar, you have the dubious question mark distinction of having a pull quote on the Australian Blu-ray cover.
My greatest crime in life is liking Chappie. Apparently. that is the thing. Yeah.
Look, I think we started this podcast around the time that District 9 came out.
Yeah. It was like a formative thing that kind of blew our minds at the time.
We thought Blomkamp was going to be like the next J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg, like all these words being thrown around because
we saw Elysium.
Then he has made a series of progressively worse movies over time.
And a lot of shorts. Really cool
and a lot of shorts. He founded Ode Studios. He's been attached to many movies that didn't go. An Alien sequel, a RoboCop movie, a Halo movie. I have to imagine that
he made a horror movie that doesn't even exist. It's out. It was released.
Exist, yes.
Nobody talks about it.
Yes. I mean,
nobody has seen it. I've seen parts of it.
I have to imagine it is difficult when you make a movie that's so universally beloved. All your other movies don't do as well, and then you get really close to making movies that are part of these franchises that are extremely beloved and widely regarded as classics in their own fields. So he's had a tough go of it, but this feels like an opportunity for him to show that he can still do it, that he can still make a good film, an entertaining film that brings people out into theaters. Devindra Hardwar, I think you've been a Blomkamp fan. You're probably the biggest Blomkamp fan on the podcast, right?
I've talked to Blomkamp around that terrible horror movie, so yeah.
You're in the Blomkamp.
I am.
You're in the Blomkamp camp. So all that said, Devindra Hardwar, what did you think of Gran Turismo? Do you think Neill Blomkamp still has what it takes to be a successful filmmaker?
Yeah. I think it does. I think this is his best movie since Chappie. How about that?
Wow.
Okay, which is not saying much.
High praise.
Not really saying much. He had one movie.
I think it's his best movie since District 9.
I think it's it's his best movie since District 9. I think Chappie was an acquired taste. Not quite for everybody, but I do love him. He's alive and he lives in my heart.
Yes. The dream of Chappie is alive in Devindra Hardwar.
Chappie is alive. No disassemble. Yeah. I think this movie, it is both a very crowd-pleasing sports movie, as that person behind Jeff Kanata proved. I think general audiences are all for it. It's also, and I'm working on a piece about this in Engadget, I think it is like the single most naked marketing effort in video game media since The Wizard. Since we watched Fred Savage play Super Mario Brothers 3, and I was a kid, I was like, wow, that'll be me someday, playing Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah, it is both. Like, it's not just a naked marketing effort for Gran Turismo and for Nissan, as much. Like, it's not just that. This entire event was Orlando Bloom's character. He's not just some executive; he's a marketing guy. I was like, yeah, this would be fun. Put the gamer kids in the cars. So it is like this is the second run at this major marketing brainstorm idea that's working out well again for Nissan. It's also, I think, a hilarious, like, it is so cringe at times, like David Harbour and his cassette Walkman. Like, you really needed that? You really needed that? Apparently Sony's headphones are so bad the sound just bleeds out and everybody hears them.
I like how in a Sony movie, every electronic product must be Sony. Even the
iPhones don't exist.
Yes.
It's not even that. They must be unmistakably Sony.
Unmistakably Sony.
You must be. It must be presented to you as Sony. Like, I'm going to show you the packaging so as not to miss that it is a Sony product.
Never has anyone been that excited to find a Walkman digital music player. You're in Tokyo. That's what you're getting excited about. A Walkman, because the iPhone doesn't exist in this universe. Anyway, so you take away all that. I think it's all, there's marketing artifice here. This movie opens with a straight up like documentary short. Never has a game been so accurate
It's
Gran
so far
Turismo.
up Polyphony Digital's ass.
It's an ad. It's an ad for Polyphony and for Sony at the beginning of this movie before we even get to the characters. But the story itself is like, it's every gamer's dream come true. So I think this movie cannot help but be a crowd pleaser. And I think Blomkamp, once you get away from a lot of the scenes where people are talking to each other, because I think the script is terrible. Once they're not talking, once they're in the cars and the cars are going zip vroom, I quite like that. I quite like that because Blomkamp, if anything, he has proven he's sort of like James Cameron, but without the ability to tell story very well. You know, like he is a good technical stylist. He's a good craftsman. He knows how to like get in really interesting shots. Apparently he used some really cool tech to capture these races at high speeds. We see a lot of drone footage in here too. I think the races are done really well. I think it's constructed, awesome. Like it was kind of thrilling. They only do this dumb thing where it's like you're in the middle of the race. You stop everything. This car's in 8th place now. Just to remind you. 10 seconds later. Oh, we're zooming along the track. Stop. This car is now in 5th place. Be excited. I feel like there was some way to
yada yada is the race part.
It does. Well, no,
it's tough. It's tough because these races
don't stop the race.
These
you have on-screen visuals. Just we can follow a moving text with the car. It's the number or something. You could do that better without like halting the action every single time.
I did not mind that at all because I don't know if you know this, Devindra, but the cars move pretty fast.
The cars move pretty fast. So I wouldn't mind it if it happened like a handful of times, but every race, I'm getting really into it.
Here's what really bothered me, Devindra. This bothered me way more than what you're talking about. Is in the first part of the movie, there are a couple sequences where they show the game? Like video game UI on top of the screen.
Yep.
That isn't even from Gran Turismo, as far as I can tell. It's just random, like GTA, like Grand Theft Auto style graphics that are just like
that's kind of fun.
I really hope this isn't gonna happen throughout the rest of the movie, and it doesn't.
It doesn't, but it is kind of fun.
Yeah.
In the way that
was stupid. We should never have done that. Anyway.
A gamer-obsessed kid seeing the world and being in like a semi-chase for his first time. That was kind of fun. Like I do think like that worked out well. The footage of Gran Turismo that they actually show, I'm definitely left being like, is that really the game? Or is this like a really beautiful CGified version of it? Because
for an ad about Gran Turismo, they do a shockingly poor job
of showing you
explaining which version of Gran Turismo he's playing. And
they don't even set the movie. Like the movie, the real life events happened in 2011, 2013,
2010.
Yeah. But it seems like the movie is set now.
Right.
It's set. Well, they have to show newer PlayStation hardware, like newer graphics. But yeah, they should have been showing PlayStation 3 graphics.
But they're not showing. They don't show anything. They don't
set the movie in any specific time period at all.
So if they yada yada anything, they yada yada the PlayStation. You know, so the verisimilitude of playing the game is kind of lost. But yeah, beyond
it would honestly be laughable, to modern day audiences if you showed someone with PlayStation 2 or 3
if you
graphics.
Showed PlayStation 3, it would be PlayStation 3.
Well, it
if
wouldn't
you showed
be
PS3 graphics.
It wouldn't be an advertisement for PlayStation anymore.
Yeah,
it would not be. So yeah, that is all very confusing. But you know what? Like I think as a crowd pleasing sports movie, the races are thrilling. I think there's a lot of twists and turns going on here. I also think the lead guy, Archie Madakwe, is fun. Like I think he is the exact sort of like deer in the headlights, like young kid, impressed by everything, so focused, very innocent. I think he is fun. David Harbour is just like they have some quotes from him in the trailer, but I also think it's David Harbour, and he is like he is good at being that tough love kind of guy. I think he does get better lines than what we see in the trailer, better than "You puked on my lawn." I think he does there's a lot of pathos in that character that he plays. And also Jimon Hansu, who I think is kind of in a thankless role here, does at least land the final moment.
Jeff Kanata, what were your thoughts on Gran Turismo?
Well, Dave, I have 2 limericks this week.
What?
One of them is my review of the movie, and the other one is just for you.
Just for me, David Chen?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for you, David Chen. So which one would you like to hear first?
Dealer's choice, Jeff. Whatever one you think will maximize the emotional impact.
All right, well, let's start with the review of the movie.
Sounds good.
Is my thoughts on Gran Turismo, best summed up in the form of a limerick.
All right, here we go.
The first half of this movie is bad. An extended PlayStation ad. the movie's less dumb when it finally becomes about racing and not the gamepad.
Nice. Yeah.
No gamepads to be seen, though, Jeff. They were all steering wheels.
Yeah, I know, but that doesn't rhyme.
No gamepad to be seen. Otherwise, we would have had to figure out which PlayStation unit we're using.
Gamepad as a metaphor for gaming in general.
Yeah.
Because it rhymes. All right, here's the one just for you, Dave.
Wow, I'm honored. Let me just say, hopefully I continue to be honored.
We'll see. I don't buy the father's machismo. You race on this PlayStation gizmo? He seems pretty dense and makes as much sense as Trump's co-defendant, Ken Cheesebro.
Wow. That's called
okay, I'm really curious why you think that was for me, Jeff.
Because you wanted me last week to do the grand setup for the title that doesn't pay off. So I did it.
I see. That is incredible.
The elaborate, very strained way to get to Ken Cheesebro.
Yes.
Just for you.
Incredible, Jeff. Bravo.
Anyway, back to my review of the movie. I agree very much with Devindra. I was certain I was going to loathe this movie about, I don't know, 45 minutes in. I mean, it is bad. It is bad writing, bad setups. It doesn't even, I mean, as somebody that is only even loosely familiar with the real life story that this is based on, it bears very little resemblance to the real life story. You know, it Hollywoodizes this in the worst possible way, in my opinion. The way the parents behave in this movie just it's so Hollywood story. It strains credulity to me. It's like, no one would behave like that in the face of this remarkable thing that just happened to your child, you know? And they didn't in real life. And you know, I love David Harbour in this movie. He's great. I totally agree with Devindra. That person does not exist in real life. He's evidently an amalgamation of like 6 different people that were involved. You got to do that for movies, I guess. But like Orlando Bloom is also not a character. There's 3 main characters in this movie, and 2 of them did not exist in real life.
That sounds about right.
And Orlando Bloom is like in a different movie than most people. He's like talking like this the whole time. He's like yelling things and like
he thinks he's in like Moneyball or something.
He's
like a very different lane.
He's doing wacky stuff. I don't know.
He does this thing, and I'm seeing this more and more in movies, by the way. Your suitcases have wheels. And we see Orlando Bloom walking around Tokyo, lifting his suitcase, which has 4 wheels on. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? At least let's use a suitcase like a human being. I don't know.
There is a visualization thing that Neill Blomkamp does. You already talked about one of them, but the other one where he like
disassembles the car.
Yeah, we see a person, you know, we see our main character playing a video game in a video game steering wheel. And then because we, the audience, are too dumb to understand that is the equivalent of driving a car, he has to CG an actual car around him to make you go, it's like he's driving a car.
It's his mental state, you see.
I don't, where it goes. I don't understand it. This movie has the mentality toward video games that no one has anymore, right? It is as if someone was beamed to us from the 80s and still thinks that video games are this like niche edge, weird counterculture thing and not completely mainstream entertainment. It's so very odd to me how this entire beginning of this movie is formed, how pat and just insultingly trite all of the setup is. All of it.
Orlando Bloom has a speech to Nissan executives. Have you heard of this game? Gran Turismo. This game has existed for like 15 years at this point, but like car executives,
it doesn't seem to fit into any existing timeline of real life that makes any sense. Like, is it happening now? Is it happening in the early 2000s? Like, when is this happening? I mean, we can go in spoilers about how it completely tramples on the actual truth of what happened, which is fine. That's what Hollywood movies do. But I was just certain this movie was going to be utter garbage.
Yeah.
And then it like kicks into a different gear, completely stops being about video games at all, and just becomes a pretty fun, decent racing movie with some fun racing visualization, some fun races and some fun drama there. And all of a sudden by the end, I'm like, I kind of liked that, but it wasn't because of any of the hard, heavy lifting that the beginning of the movie did to make this about video games at all. It just was like, oh, racing is inherently dramatic and interesting and fun. And we have good actors doing good work in this movie. And all of a sudden I'm having a good time by the end. And so ultimately I was like, well, this is pretty crowd pleasing and fun. It's kind of what you said, Devindra. It's like, it can't help but be that, because it just, the subject matter demands, it is a dramatic, interesting thing that is being dramatized here.
Cars being driven loudly, the loud thunking of gear shifting. I think there's like something viscerally enjoying for me at least. Like I just enjoy that.
Despite itself, it turns into an entertaining movie for me. But it's a massively missed opportunity on another level, because this is the ultimate fish out of water story. This is the ultimate, like, someone plucked from this world, placed into this new world. And yet I watched 2 hours and 7 minutes of this movie. I learned exactly zero about racing. Exactly zero. The only thing that is communicated that is the difference between winning and losing in this movie is you got to commit. That is literally the only piece of advice this movie gives to the main character.
Sometimes
at any
you don't
point
follow that line.
You got to commit. Commit to what you're doing. But like, wouldn't it be awesome if this movie showed you why a person who played a simulator could actually excel in real life? Wouldn't it be interesting to see how those skills translate, about what exactly it is in racing that makes you good or not good? Like, the movie does not care about any of that. And it's a massively missed opportunity, because I could have come out of this excited, not about PlayStation, which seems to be the goal of this movie, but about the sport of racing. Like, there's not even a mention of one class of car versus another, or why he's racing in this class of car, or how any of that works. Literally none of that. We have one scene at the beginning where he's in the video game and he like changes the tail fin of the car, the spoiler, is that what it's called? The thing that does the downdraft. But like, no explanation of why, how, when, what, anything about racing whatsoever. And maybe it's not this movie's job to do that, but I would have, as a viewer, loved to literally come out of this with any insight into the process. You see a person go through a process, but the details of that are completely ignored. And that is just a massive missed opportunity, in my opinion. Like I said, I came out of this movie thinking, you know, this is pretty fun ultimately. Like, the third act alone is just, it's fun. It's fun. It's good. The cars go vroom, as Devindra said. But I can't help but think this movie is a missed opportunity on a number of levels. And it just didn't need to be 2 hours and 7 minutes long. That's for sure, too.
Before we continue, I think it might be worth talking a little bit about our relationship to the Gran Turismo video game. I don't know about you guys.
You mean simulation, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
It's not a game.
Driving simulator. I apologize.
Yes.
I don't know about you guys. I spent tens of hours playing Gran Turismo 4 on my PlayStation 2. And at the time, I consider it actually a formative experience for me when it comes to racing games, because it was so quote unquote realistic in terms of how it worked, where like the game encouraged you to find the correct line through the racetrack, right? Which many racing games do today, and some did back then as well. But like, it was the first time where I really thought deeply about what is the most efficient, fastest way to get between 2 points. So I really liked the game. And Jeff, I think you're right. That's basically all completely absent from the film. Like none of really how cool the video game is and why it's cool really makes it into the film at all.
Or racing, or racing in general. Like, what is it that separates the winner from the loser? Literally, the only thing this movie tells me is you got to commit. Like, it's such banal generalizations that mean nothing.
You really needed a couple of exposition scenes where David Harbour's like, here's how the league works, you know, or you needed a scene where somebody expositions like, here's what the game does and why it's so good at the blah blah, at, you know, specifically good at this task, right?
Or I don't know if you need. I mean, exposition scenes is one way to do it, but you could express that in the journey. Like the journey,
right,
is not at all how it happened in real life. Like they make it up completely. They Hollywoodize it, make it this crazy moment. You get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow, which is not at all how it happened in real life. But so they're already like making shit up. Why not make shit up that actually helps us, the audience, be invested in the how instead of just the what, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with you, Jeff. Huge, but do any of you play Gran Turismo, or any of you like Gran Turismo?
Some. I do remember playing. I think it was mostly 2 or 3, but also thinking, "Hey, nice! Jeff is holding up a wheel.
Jeff is holding up a steering wheel.
So Jeff, master.
Does that mean you've played it before, or are you planning on it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I got this this racing wheel for GT7 because it's in PSVR 2.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
an extraordinary experience.
Oh, nice,
extraordinary.
Nice. Yeah,
but I remember playing them early on and being like, "Well, this is cool. This is accurate. It's kind of boring. Actually, doesn't feel there's not a great sense of
arcade. It's not an arcade.
It's not an arcade racer. There wasn't a great sense of speed early on, so I'd always like look over to like Ridge Racer instead and be like, I'm having more fun over there, especially like Ridge Racer 4 R4 classic. But yeah, didn't love it as much as you did, Dave.
And Jeff, I think you're saying even as a fan, like the movie doesn't do particular honor to the game, right? Like if you're a fan of the game, you're probably not gonna feel like the movie's really speaking to you. I feel very similar to you guys. I wasn't as down on the first half as Jeff Kanata was. I think this movie is right down the middle. It's just a right down the middle,
right down the straightaway.
B plus crowd pleasing sports movie. You know, that's what it is, and it really achieves that. I loved David Harbour's character. I think honestly, David Harbour is a metaphor for Neill Blomkamp in this movie. Here's a guy who used to be great back in the day, and he comes out of retirement, and he's like, "Hey, no one wants this job about this project with a racing simulator." And he's like, "Well, I guess you know, this is the one chance I have to like distinguish myself in some way." So he takes.
I guess I'll shoot for 3rd place.
Just gotta get back on the podium, folks. Just gotta make it there. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought David Harbour played the role really well. It didn't bother me that much that he's not a real character. To me, it's all about, are they able, if it's a fictional character, if it's an amalgamation of characters, is that character compelling? The answer in the case of David Harbour is yes.
I agree.
The answer in the case of Jan Mardenborough is kind of. The answer in the case of Orlando Bloom is not really. The answer in the case of Jan Mardenborough's love interest is literally didn't need to be in the movie at all. Don't even know why that was a thing. You could have removed that character. There would have been no impact on the film.
You got to have for a mainstream movie. You need to have like a love interest driving him. That's the only reason she's there. His mom is Ginger Spice, so that's something. Yeah.
I want to add on to what Devindra said about the racing scenes. They have a really difficult task before them, which is some of these races last hours. Some of them last 24 hours. How are you going to make that thrilling and interesting? And the movie does an okay job of it.
If only there was a technique that had been used in literally every other sports movie through the history of time that could somehow give you both information, drama, and context.
Maybe put a memorable song behind it, right?
How about using the announcers, the people who are calling the game for television audiences, who literally provide all those things to a television viewer at home. This movie, for some reason, has no interest in doing that.
I didn't mind that.
Two very small moments where they use the announcers, but most movies like this will have the announcer be like, well, because those people are doing that anyway, and it's authentic to the experience. They do that for home audiences. They go, they tell you the story of these racers. They tell you what the story of the current state of the race. Oh, he's in 3rd place. He's moved up from 5th. All of that stuff is what an announcer does. And this movie just stubbornly refuses to use them, and I don't understand it.
I mean, that's a choice. I will say straight up, like I didn't miss that because you were in the perspective of the racers and being on the track. So you hear the guy in your radio headset, you'll hear, you know, what they pipe in, but you do not hear what's happening from the announcers or anything.
I also didn't mind, you know, my guess is they had good, they probably had good reasons for it, you know. Here's one. There's tons of race cars on the track. You know,
they all look the same.
Dozens and dozens of race cars, and it's like maybe with the announcer, it would introduce too many characters into them. You know, who knows? But I think they did okay in terms of how they conveyed progress in these races. Basically, there'll be times where it's like lap 26, 5 hours left to go, 3 hours left to, you know, rank 4th place, rank 3rd place, you know, and I have to say, overall, the car racing scenes look great in this film.
Didn't they use some of the tech from like Top Gun to shoot some of the cars too? I seem to recall reading that somewhere. I have to look into that.
I don't know about that, but they definitely use a lot of first-person drone footage.
Yeah,
and they, you know, they've claimed that there's very few VFX used. Obviously, some VFX are used, but a lot of the car, whatever effects are used, it looks like they actually went out and raced real cars. Like it does. It felt very like visceral. Even if there is CG, it looks largely realistic.
And it's shot in a way we've really never seen. You know, there's lots of racing movies, Days of Thunder, etc. But having the drone shots kind of like moving in different angles to where the cars are moving, it really did look cool and dynamic. My big problem with what you just described, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but my big problem with what you described about like hour 14, place 5, whatever, is like there's literally no information as to what changed between being in position 8 and being in position 5. Like, what isn't everybody trying to get into position 5? What is our hero doing differently that's allowing them to move up through the race? There's literally no context given for that at all.
Well, I think there's a reason why there aren't that many more racing movies, Jeff. You know, it's like, it's a fairly uncinematic sport in many ways, right? Like with basketball, it's like, oh, you can see, here are the plays that led to them getting 8 more points, right? In racing, it's like, oh, he took a turn or took 2 turns a little bit faster than the other guy, and that's why, you know.
I think that completely discounts why there are millions of fans of racing.
Absolutely.
Right? Those people watch those races with the knowledge base required to understand the intricacies, and this movie could have welcomed me, a layman, into that knowledge base. It could have given me a glimpse as to what those people see in racing that makes it so dramatic for them. And the movie just is not interested in giving me that information.
I completely agree with you. That's why I said they did okay. I don't think they did great, you know, but I don't think it was terrible because the visceral thrills are still pretty good. Like the shots of cars moving quickly, that's pretty good. Could have been better. Could have done what Jeff describes. And I agree with you. That's really thrilling when a movie does that. It's like, hey, you don't know anything about this world, but we're going to like we're going to tell you, like, here are the things you don't know anything about the world of badminton, but here's like what a good badminton play looks like, you know, like, and then you are like, oh, wow, now I have opinions about what's good badminton. You know, like, that's a fun, enjoyable movie. This movie
you just watched really the Slam Dunk movie, and I feel like that series is known for being like, hey, here are some interesting things about basketball you've never thought about, right?
Yeah, well, that movie also does literally what I just described, which is it can show you how they got more points, like literally how they got more points. So anyway, so overall, sounds like none of us hated this movie, nor did any of us love it, but it's like very competent film. And if this means more Neill Blomkamp movies, then I'm not opposed because I think he still clearly has some skills. So let's do a few spoilers starting right now. Look, I know that most of these characterizations are contrivances for the movie, but I still got a little bit emotional when Jamin Hunsu, you know, and, you know, Jan Marlborough and his father, like, kind of embraced at the end. It's like, really
when he points at the helmet and she sees the sticker, I got misty.
It is basic screenwriting. You know, it's like, hey, we seeded this thing in. They come from this rough working class background where they work with their hand. You know, like, it's very basic.
Except that his dad's a soccer player.
His dad was a soccer star. His brother's another one.
It's not like a super complex, you know, class commentary or anything like that. But
Jamin Hunsu really sells it.
It got the job done. I
wish he was in movies more than to be that guy, to have that crucial, you know, moment for our lead, which seems to be everywhere he appears. So yeah, I wish he had more than that. I'm also surprised the parents just didn't. I'm sure real life was different, but they I think in real life, parents would probably show up for that first race or for some of those
video
races.
Of them. Yeah, there's video online you can see of them being super proud of their son for winning the academy. It's like, it's not at all how it went down.
Yeah. One of the most controversial elements of the film is that in real life, there was a freak accident that resulted in the death of a bystander.
It wasn't before he did Le Mans.
Exactly.
Though.
That's right. So in the film, that tragic death is moved to before he raced at Le Mans and is used as important character development. Some people find this pretty tasteless, to move a real life tragic death and use it as character development in a film. I probably agree, like that's kind of where I come down on it, is like that's probably pretty tasteless, but
I think the way he describes it in real life is that it was character development for him. Like he did have a crisis of, do I continue on? My actions led to someone's death. And it's time shifted, but I think the details of it are not, there's a lot of details in this movie that are not accurate to real life, but I think they really kept with the details of how that crash happened. Like,
I'm surprised they even like confronted it, like even tried to do it.
Well, evidently, his interviews, the real life Jan's interviews have said he is the one who insisted that it was in the movie because he thought it was such a big part of his life. So I mean, it was a character moment for him, right?
That's fair enough, Jeff. I think maybe part of my I'm kind of on the borderline about it. I think part of my reaction comes from the fact that like the movie's like a pretty rote plot. It's a very standard. Success, setback, and then to plug someone's real life death.
Yeah, I feel really bad
in a
for
way
the
that
family.
wasn't accurate. Does feel a little icky.
They never say the name of the bystander, but if they were your friend or your family member,
Yeah.
Well, the other crash too, and it does not result in a death in the movie, but the other crash that happens in training, I think that's completely fictional, so far as I could find. And every single of the other characters in the academy with him is completely fictional. And when he finally did race Le Mans, it wasn't an all video game team. They had a experienced racer on the Le Mans. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to get more upset about, I think, than that. But
it's just funny that this movie literally has a Cobra Kai team and they drive gold cars.
I know, right?
It's amazing.
They try to sweep the leg in this movie.
Yeah,
they did.
But hey, guys, it's pretty impressive that this actually happened in real life,
It's a crazy story.
Oh, yeah.
That somebody was actually able to achieve it.
The wizard was right.
Yeah. And
one day you give her up. Yeah.
It is a stirring endorsement of how much of a simulation this is, right? I think that is really cool.
Oh, that was a thing, Jeff, that like I wanted to mention, which is the movie does have this scene where he says, hey, the brakes. He was able to identify the issue with the brakes, right?
I thought that was pretty well done.
I would love to know what that meant. Like, he says the brakes glazed.
Were glazed.
Yeah, the glaze.
I'm like, I have no fucking idea what that means.
Yeah. So to me, that was the movie kind of nodding in the direction of what it's not doing what you're saying. I'm not saying it's a replacement for what you're saying, but it's nodding in the direction of that the game gives you abilities to detect things that are actually useful in the real world. Now,
but if it had spent 1/2 of a second more and
Agreed.
explained to me what glazed brakes are.
Yes. I agree. It would have been a richer,
better
movie. I agree. But it wasn't like no one was thinking about it at all. It was just they didn't quite go far enough in that.
I award them 0 points for half.
And may God have mercy on their soul. Yeah. The one thing I left the movie with a lot more questions though than answers. Right? Like, hey, if this is such a successful thing, why aren't they doing it all the time?
Well, also, he wasn't
probably economic realities that prevent it from happening. Right?
Well,
like
Nissan decided not to sponsor it anymore because they reallocated their funds, but it stopped in 2015, I think, 2018. So Jan was not the first person to win the GT Academy. I think he was the 5th. And he was the 3rd in Europe and the 5th overall to win, I think. But also the guy who won it the first time placed higher at Le Mans before Jan did. He got 2nd place at Le Mans before Jan ever raced Le Mans. So, there's a lot of the stuff that in real life not as...
Can you imagine being that guy and then watching this movie? You'd be so pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember watching.
If you place the podium in Le Mans, you're immortal, unless you've done it before this movie, and no one wants to mention it anymore.
No one mentions it. I remember I was watching Norm Macdonald's comedy special, Hitler's Dog, on Netflix, and he was saying how when the guys went up to space, like Neil Armstrong and Buzz, they went up to space, and there's another guy in the capsule that went all the way up with them. Didn't get to walk on the moon though.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine going on? That's like that guy. It's like he did the thing, didn't get the movie made about him though. You know, he was the one. Yeah. So
yeah, he did all of it. Yeah.
It is odd to me that they didn't. It just left me with a lot of questions. Like in other sports, right? Like Scouts. I know because I watched the Amazon original film Air. But like Scouts, they go to like high schools and they're like checking out like who's gonna be the next Michael Jordan. It's like, wouldn't it be useful to see who's really good? If this is really a legitimate pipeline for talent, wouldn't people be still doing this? Or why aren't they doing it? There's probably realities that make that impossible. But like the movie doesn't explain any of that.
That was another thing that, they're like, there's all of this prejudice against the video gamers presented in the movie. The establishment doesn't like these gamers coming in and trying to, we're going to sabotage the gamers, and all the mechanics aren't going to like you because you're a gamer, which, on a certain level, I understand. But on another level, I wish the movie gave me any information to contextualize that too, because I go, well, okay, so we have this kid who is a racer and hates him because he's a gamer, but like, how did he start?
Right. Yeah,
I would love to know. How does one get into this if not trying simulators?
Right. Yeah. Do you just buy a car and start, how does it? We literally don't, we have no idea. We have no idea.
The movie gives you no information. That's my problem with it. It's like, it's ridiculous. Anyway.
All right, folks. Any other thoughts on Gran Turismo before we wrap it up?
Blomkamp did it. Chappie 2 coming next. Let's make it happen.
I literally hated all of the things that Blomkamp did to make racing and gaming coalesce. And it just felt like such unnecessary effort to CGI all the stuff.
I agree, unnecessary, but also at least he had a vision. I could see somebody doing this movie and being like, I don't care. Like just like here's a race, here's a video game screen. Yeah. I'm not going to go through the extra effort to do this real-time overlay of a car over somebody driving in a simulator or something. Yeah,
Jeff, I think it is like you and me. We want the information about like why Gran Turismo is so special, but if you can deliver that with a really wildly CG image of him driving a video game vehicle and it becoming the real one. For most people, that'll probably be good enough, man.
It just strikes me as being something that was from a different era when people just didn't understand how video games were, and you had to really show them, look, he's actually driving a car,
I felt it was more like that's the mental state of the guy. It didn't feel like, this is a game. It's more like when you put on that VR headset, Jeff, and you play Gran Turismo 7, it's incredible. It's like you're in a car.
I think there's a lot of people who still do feel like there is a not insubstantial number of people in the movie-going audience who still have that standoffish attitude about video games, in my opinion.
I mean, it's a huge generational divide.
And this movie is for them. This movie's for them. It's not for us.
That part where it exploded into the individual parts of the car was cool. I like that one.
Yeah.
But that was a kind of a different thing.
All right, folks. Well, at the end of the day, and I say this very sincerely, it is impressive that Neill Blomkamp made a movie. And I hope he makes another one soon because, anyone who has the greatness of District 9 within them is probably capable of other great things as well. So,
I hope he works with better scripts moving forward. I feel like that you got to marry these visuals with something with better words.
This is the first time he made a movie that he didn't write, right?
Yes.
Like this is and it's one of his best movies.
It's one of his best movies.
So
this is what I'm saying. A better script than this one. How about that? But not him writing again, please.
Fair enough. Anyway, solid film, Gran Turismo. That's the Filmcast review of it. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.